Apologies if you can hear a leaf blower. This neighbor has been blowing leaves off of their yard for the past hour. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Hi, my name is Liz and today we are going to be doing my winter recommendations. These are all books that are either set in the winter time or I just think would be really great reads in the winter. Hopefully this can give you just some new books to add to your list for this upcoming season. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So I have a couple different genres that I'm going to talk about today. The first one is going to be romance books. So if you're like me, I love reading a good cozy romance in the winter time. Usually I like it to be more of like a cheesier romance. Either I like reading like a hockey romance or like a book that's set in the winter time or around Christmas. So it's almost like a Hallmark movie essentially. And that is exactly what some of these books are. The first one we're going to talk about is The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ally Carter. I recently read this month for a book club that I was in, and I have to say I loved this book. I actually was very pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed it. I didn't expect going into it that I was going to like it as much as I did. This story follows our two main characters who are both rival mystery thriller authors. So our main character, she recently got out of a really bad marriage, and then our other main character, he is kind of this very arrogant and well-known thriller author, and he always gives her a hard time. He never says her name right whenever they see each other at different author events. She basically hates his guts. These two authors are invited to this other very world-renowned mystery writer. Think Agatha Christie, just very well known, has written lots and lots of books. They both get invited to her estate for Christmas. When they arrive, they're meeting, this author's family. There's other people who are also invited, other mystery writers and people in this writer's life who are invited to her Christmas with her family. And a few nights before Christmas, our famous author, she goes to her office to write before bed, and her door is locked. And the next morning, the door is still locked, but she has disappeared. So everyone in the estate or in this manor is trying to figure out what happened to her, how she got out of this locked office, and where did she go. Our two main characters decide to take it upon themselves to crack the mystery and solve what is going on this Christmas. I loved this book so much. It honestly just was the perfect amount of Christmas thrown in, and I've been really craving a Christmassy type book. So this was a really fun read to read in the month of November because it's getting me very excited for the holiday season. Also, it's very similar to Knives Out. So if you've ever watched Knives Out, you would really enjoy this book. Next up, we have The Mistletoe Motive by Chloe Leese. This is a very short story. It's like a little over 100 pages. It's like one of the quickest romance books I have ever read personally. I read this last winter and I really, really enjoyed it. It's definitely on the more cheesy Hallmark side of romance, which was okay because I enjoy a good Hallmark movie around Christmas time. That's really the only time I ever watched Hallmark. So it definitely gave me what I expected. Our story follows our two main characters who are both workers at this bookstore, and it's coming up into the holiday season. However, the store is not doing great financially. The two kind of figure out that there's only going to be room for one of them still be on staff after the holidays. So they're kind of in this competition to see who can bring in more customers, who can bring in more money to the store. The girl, she is like Miss Christmas. Like, she loves Christmas, everything about it. She's very sunshiny, happy. And our guy main character obviously is the flip side. He's very grumpy. He's very much the Grinch in this scenario. But I honestly loved their dynamic because it was just so cute and cheesy and fun and literally a Hallmark movie. If you were looking for a cheesy romance, this is the book for you. And the last romance book I'm going to talk about is Love Light Farms by B.K. Vorison. This is another winter romance that I read last winter and I really, really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this book, I think, like 4.5 stars. I loved it that much. Our main character, who she owns a tree farm in her hometown. However, her farm is financially going under, and there's this big internet competition where this Instagram famous girl decides to come visit different holiday destinations. She's basically trying to pick a winning destination, and she will give those people $100,000 in prize money. And our main character, she decides to apply for this contest, and she lies on her application that she has a boyfriend, but she's trying to make her tree farm sound like this beautiful, magical winter wonderland, essentially. She has her best friend pretend to be her boyfriend. So yes, it's fake dating. I loved this book so much. It was honestly everything I wanted, and I feel like it wasn't overly cheesy. I loved our guy main character, Luca. He was the best. And I can, all I can say is I was kicking my feet while I was reading this book. Their dynamic is so cute. Obviously, they have a ton of chemistry because they're best friends. I will say this is a part of an interconnected standalone series. So there's other books by the same author. And I believe each one is set in like a different season. So this was the one that's set in like winter time. So it's kind of perfect. Also, it's about a tree farm. So when else should you be reading this book? Next, we're going to be talking about a couple of different fantasy books. That's another genre I tend to gravitate towards in the wintertime. I love fantasy world. I don't know why. It just seems very cozy to me. The first one I want to talk about is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I read this last January. I loved this book. I don't know if you would necessarily categorize it as fantasy, but it was definitely magical realism. It's just this magical world where there's this traveling circus. It's run by magic, essentially. Our two main characters are these two different magicians who are a part of this circus. Both of their mentors have been in this competition for decades, and so they decide to put together their two different, why can't I think of the word, not amateurs, what? Apprentices? Sure. Up against each other to see who can win and who can out magic the other. Little do they know though, only one magician can survive. You're getting this beautiful, magical, complicated, intricate world, and I really loved reading this story. Honestly, I would love to see this book made into a movie because I would love to see visually the things that I was reading. Next up, we have the Ledge trilogy by Stacey McEwan. Once again, this was another book that I read this past December. I'm pretty sure I finished the second book on New Year's Eve. Like I was trying to finish it before the new year hit, and I was like reading it. I binged these two books within like a day. I really, really enjoyed my time while reading them. Basically, this world is set where our main character, her and her community are all set on top of this cliff up in the mountains. There's this species called glacians. So they're these winged creatures. Think of the Bat Boys from ACOTAR, essentially. But they're these winged creatures who will come to their community and they will take human sacrifices every single year. Our main character, she ends up being one of the human sacrifices this year, and she gets taken to the Glacian kingdom. While she's there, she meets a half Glacian, half human hybrid, and he decides to help her escape. He also is trying to escape as well, but it's just their journey. I really, really enjoyed it. I will say I enjoyed the second book even more than the first one. The second book, I feel like it had a lot more found family. You learn about a lot more side characters, and I loved all of our side characters in the second book. And I do believe the third book came out a month or two ago. It is a completed trilogy. So if you're looking for a completed fantasy series, this is definitely a great one to read this upcoming winter. And last but not least, we're going to talk about some mystery thrillers, because what else would you read in winter time? I feel like a lot of mystery thrillers take place in winter, or like there's a blizzard going on, because it just heightens the suspense and the danger that our main characters are in, and that's what I love. I love reading about that in the wintertime. It's dark, it's cold. I want to be a little spooked. I want to get cozy with the fireplace and a blanket. Like, to me, mystery thrillers are where it's at in winter. First one I want to talk about is No Exit by Taylor Adams. This is another book that I read last December. It takes place during a blizzard. Like I said, lots of my mystery thrillers take place during the winter time, which I love. Our main character, she is on her way home from college. She's on like her winter break, and while she's driving, she ends up stopping at this rest stop because there's a blizzard going on, so she decides to wait it out. When she gets inside, there are 4 other adults. They're all just kind of doing the same thing. They're waiting out the storm, and she decides to go out in the parking lot to try to find self-service. And while she's walking by one of the cars, she notices there is a little girl caged in the trunk of one of the cars. Our main character decides to take it upon herself to save this young child, which is amazing, but at the same time, she's trying to figure out which of these 4 people who are in this rest stop who did this to this child. It's a very high stakes book. It was constant action. I think the whole thing takes place over 24 hours. Each chapter, it's like a new hour. I felt like I was like holding my breath while I was reading this book, trying to get to the next chapter to see what was going to happen next. Next, we have Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Once again, this is another mystery thriller that takes place during a blizzard or in the winter time. I read this last December as well, and I loved it. This had been sitting on my TBR for the longest time, and I finally read it last winter, and I can't believe it took me so long to read it because I loved it. It ended up being, it might have been a 5 stars. I can't remember what I rated this book. I gave it a really high rating. It's following this married couple who win this weekend getaway trip in Scotland, and so they decide to go because it's their wedding anniversary. What's interesting about our two main characters is the guy, he has face blindness, which I have never read about in a book. I thought that was very, very interesting. He and his wife, their marriage has been kind of going the downhill slope. It's not looking great for them. So they decide to go on this weekend getaway to kind of revive their marriage, essentially. Every year our female main character, she writes her husband a letter on their anniversary. She never lets him read her letters, but this is their 10-year anniversary. So he's finally getting to read her letters, and a lot of secrets are coming out. Meanwhile, at the same time, some very creepy, weird things are kind of happening around the place that they're staying at, and that just added a whole nother layer of creepiness to the whole thing. I really enjoyed it. I really want to read more by Alice Feeney. I know she has a new mystery thriller that comes out in January called Beautiful Ugly, I believe, and I do have the arc for that, so I am planning on reading that, I think, this upcoming December or January. I'm really excited to get back into her writing because it's so fast-paced, and the way she writes this story, it's so interesting because you're getting chapters where it's the wife's letters, and then it'll go back to like what's going on while they're on this weekend getaway. I just really liked the back and forth. I feel like the pacing was incredible, and the twist really had me by the end. And last but not least, Dying for Christmas by Tammy Cohen. I read this last December, so a lot of these recommendations I read this past year, and that's why I want to talk about them, because I don't want to recommend them unless it's like the perfect time to read them. It follows our main character who's at a bar one evening, and she decides to go home with a handsome stranger. First of all, I don't understand how people can just go home with people, like complete strangers. That's so incredibly dangerous. I don't know how people do that, no matter how attractive they are. Give me your phone number and I will call you or I'll text you. I'm not gonna go to your house alone when I don't even know who you are. But she decides to do it, and I know a lot of people also do that. If that's what you want to do, just be safe. Bring some pepper spray with you, please. When she gets to his apartment, he does not let her leave, and so she basically is kidnapped, and every single day she is trapped in his apartment, he gives her a new gift. So he's doing like the 12 days of Christmas, and each gift is something creepy and gross and has to do with his childhood and how he came to be who he is. And also, Christmas is in the title, so it literally has to do with the 12 days of Christmas. So if you want a creepy Christmas mystery thriller, this is the one for you. And that is gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you got some good recommendations for this winter holiday season. Hopefully you get some good reading done. I know I have a massive stack of books that I want to get to personally, and I cannot wait. I'm really, really excited for this upcoming season. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.